in PEP 8. Now, you don't have to memorize any of these best practices. As you code in PyCharm, PyCharm gives you little warnings, and gradually you will learn how to properly format your code so it's readable by other people. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to work with directories in Python. So here on Python 3 module index, you can see we have a module called pathlib, which provides an object-oriented file system path. That basically means it provides classes that we can use to create objects to work with directories and files. So if you click here, you can see how this module works. You can see all kinds of examples. For example, here under basic usage, you can see this is how we import the path class from the pathlib module. Let me zoom in so you can see clearly. Okay, so look, from pathlib, that's our module, import path. Note the naming convention. P is capitalized. That means path is a class. So we need to create an instance of this class, as you can see right here. Now, there is so much documentation here. You can read this on your own, but let me quickly show you a few examples to help you get started. So back in PyCharm, on the top, from the pathlib module, let's import the path class. Now we need to create a path object to reference a file or a directory on our computer. So there are basically two ways to do this. We can use an absolute path or a relative path, which basically means a path starting from the current directory. For example, if you want to reference this e-commerce directory in our project, we can use the relative path. So we start from the current directory and then go somewhere else. With absolute paths, we start from the root of our hard disk. For example, if you're on Windows, you might have an absolute path like this: C drive / program files / Microsoft. So these are directories in C drive. On Windows, we use a / to build a path. If you're on Mac or Linux, your paths look a little bit different. So instead of a /, we have a /. Let's say user/local/bin. So these are examples of absolute paths. In this tutorial, we're going to work with a relative path to work with this e-commerce directory that we have in our project. Now, if you didn't create this directory earlier, simply right-click on the project and then go to New Directory. Okay, so let's close this panel. We create a path object. Now, if we don't pass an argument here, this will reference the current directory. Alternatively, we can pass a string. In this string, we can add a file or a directory. Let's say the e-commerce directory. Now this returns a path object, so we store it here. Now this path object has a few interesting methods. For example, we can check to see if a path exists by calling the exist method. This simply returns a Boolean, so let's print it on the terminal. There you go. So this path exists, but if we change this to, let's say, e-commerce1 and run our program, we get false. We can also create a new directory. For example, let's change this path to emails. Now, when we run this program, obviously we don't have this directory, but we can create it by calling the mkdir method. So make directory. Let's run our program. All right. This method returns none, which basically means it doesn't return any values. Now, if you look at the project panel, you can see here we have a new directory called emails. We can also delete this directory. So instead of mkdir, we call rmdir, which is short for remove directory. Let's go ahead. Now you can see that directory is gone. We can also find all the files and directories in a given path. That is very useful if you want to write a little program to automate something. For example, you can iterate over all the spreadsheets in a directory, open them, and process them. Let me show you. So first we change the path to the current directory, and then we call the glob method. With this method, we can search for files and directories in the current path. So as the first argument, we need to pass a string that defines a search pattern. We can type an asterisk, and that means everything, all files and all directories. We can optionally add an extension. So to get all the files, we use ***. With this pattern, we'll only get the files in the current directory, but not the directories. We can also search for all the Py files or all the Excel spreadsheets, anything. So let's search for all the Py files in the current directory. Now, when we run our program, we get this generator object. Generator objects are kind of an advanced topic, and they are beyond the scope of this beginner's Python course. But for now, all you need to know is that we can iterate or loop through these generator objects. So instead of printing this generator object, let's just iterate over it using a for loop. So for file in the generator object that is returned from the glob method, let's print file. Run our program. There you go. So these are all the Py files in my current directory. This could be different on your machine if you didn't follow the exercises I gave you earlier. For example, this utils.py, we created this as part of one of the exercises earlier in this course. So don't worry if the files you see here are different on your machine. So we can use the glob method to search for files using a pattern. We can also get all the files and directories in the current path. So we just use one asterisk, run our program, take a look.